Welcome to The Rest is Giant Robots, a conversation through the careers of writer Simon Furman and artist Andrew Wildman. Recollections and revelations about the highs and the lows as creatives in comics, books, games, film and TV. Oh, God.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, here we go.
Hang on. Yes, we're listening to Andrew's building works going on. Just so you know, this thing isn't AI faked.
No, it's real works, not AI building works.
Yeah, AI building works in the background just for authenticity. And hello, everyone. We're
Yes,
here.
hello, Prime members.
Yes, Prime members, we're here in our videos section with extra sound effects. And yeah,
With Simon with a massive S for Simon behind his head.
Yes, and my Man Thing t-shirt.
Does you're a man thing.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I always loved that in the 70s, Marvel did this giant size series. I think they realized they could get more content out. So there was giant size Fantastic Four, giant size Spider-Man, and giant size Man Thing. Excellent. Somebody had a laugh with that one, I think.
That's probably the only reason they did the whole range of it, just so they could get to that.
Yep, absolutely. I'm sure that was the germ of the idea. It sounds like
it's come with a pop-up that says playing music on Zoom. It came on.
Excellent. It sounds like your stomach is growling or something.
There's nothing I can do to filter that. I thought this microphone was. I'm sure in the past it's filtered out things like dog barks and whatever,
but not the whine of electric drills. Anyway,
are we going to carry on regardless?
I think we're going to carry on regardless because that's what we do. That's the kind of troopers we are.
So, what are we talking about today with these?
Well, we're gonna be picking up our film roundup from episode 27. So if you can hear us over the construction noise, hopefully you'll enjoy that.
Oh my God.
And also, maybe we can just touch on anything else we're doing before we get into that for our Prime viewers. If you've been following me on social media, you'll have seen I posted up a save this date for September 17th, which, by the way, is Transformers Day. Who knew? But there is some big news coming that has to do with the Battersea Power Station store and me. So look out for that. I think this will air just before that. So you still have a chance to bunk off work and get down there on Wednesday the 17th.
Yeah, should be good. Should be good. Who knew that there would be a Transformers Day? Do you think they'll carry that on every year until it never ends?
I mean, until it never ends. Yeah. And I mean, I think, there's talk of a sort of second, more general Hasbro store opening up in central London now. So this thing that started off, I think, as a bit of a pop-up really has, had gathered such momentum.
Yeah, because Hasbro got a broad amount of properties, haven't they? Huge properties. Don't they own The Gathering, the Wizard the Gathering, or whatever it's called?
Magic the Gathering, maybe.
Magic the Gathering. Yeah. I think they own that as well.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm sure there's huge amount of related product. I mean, you only have to go into the Transformers store in Battersea and just go, wow, who knew there was this much merch? Yeah. It's not even the toys per se, it's just the merch.
Yeah, and that's when it becomes a brand, doesn't it? It's not just a product, it's a brand.
No, indeed. So yeah. So while
come in.
Yeah. Any news from you that you can share, or are you still under embargo?
Well, an interesting one came up, which I'm not spreading far and wide, but we can tell the faithful. So the movie that I'm working on, I still can't talk about it, even though I've started working on it, but it hasn't got an official green light yet. So there's no mention there. I mean,
Right.
it's all but there, but um, they've said that myself and the director can start working out sequences and stuff. So I'm doing some storyboarding on that, which is going great. Is it on my screen behind me? Oh,
No, thankfully not.
it's on that one.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Um,
yeah. Just
yeah,
keep yourself between you and that
it will switch
monitor.
its yeah, it'll switch itself off in a minute, so it won't be a
Yeah.
problem. But no, but the other surprise was, so I've been waiting for a long time for this movie to get the green light. So in a situation like that, it's always difficult when people approach and say, "What's your availability?" And you're like, "I don't really know," but you don't know whether you can commit to something else or whatever. They're kind of keeping it open. So then I was approached by a production office who asked my availability, and it was to work with a director that I've worked with a lot
Hmm.
before. His name's Robbie McKillop. So the first thing I worked with him on was a TV show called Our Zoo, which was basically based on the origins of Chester Zoo. But then we've done other stuff.
Mm.
I don't know. What have we done? More kind of adventure, action,
Yeah.
cop, whatever. We've done all sorts of stuff like that. Anyway, so they set up a Zoom call between me and Robbie. So we came on the Zoom call, and the project details I'd be sent. It was called Piccadilly, but I didn't know anything about it.
Okay.
Um, and I looked on the internet, I couldn't find anything. So I thought, well, maybe it's just like a code name because they
Yeah.
often do this. So I got on the call with Robbie, and he said, "How much do you know anything about the project?" And I said, "No." I said, "Well, nothing at all." I said, "Well, I know it's called Piccadilly, but anything more than that, I don't know." "Have they not sent you a script?" "No, I haven't got a script." "Right." And he said, "It's slow horses."
Oh, wow.
I
Brilliant.
was like, "Oh yeah, I'll have some of that."
Yeah. Do you know which season it is you're working on?
I do, yeah. So I mean, season 4 is on at the moment. Season 5 comes out next month.
Yes.
I'm working on season 7.
Wow. Yeah, because they do them in twos, don't they?
Yeah, they're
It,
stacking them up. Yeah,
yeah, it tends to be they'll do two back to back and then do another two back to back. So,
yeah. Which
yeah,
shows how much of a success it is
yeah. I
to
mean, it's
for,
great. I mean, but again, I'm doing that thing of I've been reading the books, but I'm trying to stay ahead of the TV show, which I'm now comfortably ahead of.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, which one's seven? I can't think offhand, but
So
my
how do they relate to the books then?
close but different.
Is it
You know,
like one season is one book or something, or
yes, yeah,
okay?
yeah, and so generally that means they have to expand a bit, change a few things.
Yeah,
There's one series of one of the ones that's already come out where the inciting terrorist incident was changed quite radically from the
okay,
book to the TV, and I
yeah,
think that was possibly because there was a danger of it sort of marrying up with something actual, and they
yeah,
didn't want to risk that.
right,
So yeah, they sort of, I think, toned down the sort of inciting incident. In the book it's much more major and graphic.
mm,
So yeah, it's changing. They're changing odd things, and I won't say anything if you haven't been watching it, but some of the relationships with the characters are slightly altered, but not
mm,
much.
mm.
Otherwise it's following the track of the books, the trajectory.
So, I mean, it's amazing how when things go from book to screen, how the screen would require something very different, and
Hmm.
you know, if they don't get that right, it sometimes a really good book can just not work on screen at all.
Yeah. and
I
and
mean,
the book.
I'm a huge fan of Harlan Coben books. Been reading them
Hmm.
for years,
Yeah.
and every single one I read, I thought this would make a brilliant movie or a TV series or whatever. And I think out of all the ones they've done, there's probably only one or maybe two that work. They just they just
Yeah.
don't quite nail the same sense of
No.
pace and intrigue.
And the TV thing has its own pulse because the books, I mean, he's a brilliant writer, Mick Herron, and some of his descriptions are laugh out loud funny, and the lines he gives Jackson Lamb.
Yeah,
But you know, because you're internalized, you can get a lot more, wring a
yeah,
lot more out of a book.
yeah,
Whereas on TV, it's just got to be, you know, a little more snappy dialogue led, really.
yeah, yeah. No,
But
that's
yeah, but
interesting.
yes, great. Oh well, anyway, great. Sort of. You'll have to keep me in the loop on that if you can.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Be
I'll tell you
very
what's going on.
interested.
I've done
Yep.
I've done some work on it, so I've now got to balance that and the movie um in a bit. But I spoke to the director on the movie, and he said, "Well, I'll talk to the production company and I'll make sure that we protect your other interests." He said, because
Mm,
sometimes it's too much of a clash, but because
yeah.
they both come up at the same time. Um, but
Well, that's
the movie work will go on long beyond what I'm doing
yes.
on Slow Horses. That'll just be some key scenes. Yeah,
But yeah.
but it's good
But
work with Robbie. He's a great little director. Yeah,
mm, excellent. Well, I'm really pleased for you. That's a really good one. And so is the other one we can't talk about. So yeah, amazing, great stuff. Shall we press the button and go for a
yeah. Let's do
record
that. Yeah.
for the general audience? Thank
Mm,
you, Prime listeners,
yeah.
watchers, as always.
I've
Um,
been trying to think of something different to do for the Prime members in terms of the TF Nation one that's
okay,
going out, but there isn't really anything I can do. So that one's going to have to go out on general release. So sorry, Prime
yeah,
members, we love you. You will get it in advance of everybody else.
yeah.
So that's better than nothing. But there's no kind of separate content to that one.
No, no. Well, it was a bit of a one-off, that one, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Until next year
Right.
when we'll do it all again.
I think it's me introducing this time.
Still want to wait for the angle grinder to
No, no,
start.
no. It just adds, like I say, texture. Anyway, yes. Well, no, actually, maybe I will wait till that starts. It's quite off-putting. Oh well,
It's literally
you've got a
just up
few,
there.
yes, you've got a few more seconds of bonus content while we wait for that noise to stop. Right.
That is bonus content.
Yes, that is. Yeah, bonus noise. This could be a long time. Okay. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to episode 30 of The Rest is Giant Robots. I'm Simon Furman.
And I'm Andrew Wildman, and the noise in the background, we're literally building a new podcast. No, we're not.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got the builders in, but we needed to get this podcast done, and I don't want to stop the builders because
No,
they're ploughing on
no,
ahead.
no. So that little whine is not me thinking, oh God, episode 30, how have we done this? It's actually the builders and their drills. Why have we done this? No,
We're going to persevere. Please carry on
we
listening. But
we are, yes, we absolutely are. We kind of love it ourselves now. Right, we're going to be picking up the threads from episode 27, which was our last movie review roundup, general rant on the screen, big and small. So,
yeah,
I think if you remember, we talk at length about Fantastic Four First Steps, 28 years later, and I think you talked about Jurassic World Rebirth.
did I? Good. I got my list up here. I couldn't remember which ones we'd
Yeah,
spoken about. So
no, I dug it out. I think we left it roughly at where um, I was going to mention something I saw not at the cinema, but we're going to talk about Superman. If you're a Prime
yeah,
viewer, you can see I've got a big Superman symbol behind me. So we're obviously going to talk about Superman. But one little thing I wanted to touch on was on one of my channels, I watched Gladiator 2 because I very much enjoy Gladiator 1 or
mm,
just Gladiator. And I was interested just to see what they did with it and how connected it was to the original. But I've got to say, I was bitterly disappointed by it. It just kind of didn't tick any of the boxes I
Mm.
wanted it to tick. You've seen it, haven't you?
Yeah, I have seen it. Yeah. Um, I saw it in a wonderful local living room cinema.
Yep.
Big shout out for the living room cinema, Chipping Norton. If you're ever in the area, check it out. Best coffee in town, and an amazing sound system actually.
Hmm.
Apparently, even better than the Curzon in Oxford.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I did see it, and I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. And
Mhm.
then when we got home, myself and Leslie, when we got home, we watched the original Gladiator, and we thought, yeah, the original's a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, the original, you know, I kind of couldn't help comparing it to the original because the original was, again, what we always talk about in our movie podcasts is just clarity of storytelling. You know, you know who your hero is, you know who the boo hissable villain is. The movie is constructed in a certain way where it's not can't be surprising, but you sort of you join it and you think, yeah, okay, I know where I am with this. With Gladiator 2, I didn't have a clue who really I was supposed to be following, rooting for. There was a kind of a slight mess of the main character. Okay, he's
Mm,
related to the first movie,
yeah.
but he doesn't seem like much of the hero character in it,
Mm,
even a reluctant hero. And then you've got another sort of character who might be the one you're supposed to be following as well. And it was muddy from the outset. And from that point on, it lost me that I just kind of didn't know. And I would have thought confusing to
yeah.
anybody who hadn't seen the first one.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Yes, there is that kind of backstory as to who the characters are. I think it does stand alone, does it not? I mean, it's better
Mm,
if you know who it is, but when you know who he is, even if you don't know the kind of the background, but when you know who he is and who is, his mother and the
yeah.
relationships are revealed, I think it makes it more interesting if you've seen the first one. But I think you could
Mm,
probably see it without seeing the first one. I I kind of it's all the thing about these things is that when you go in and see a sequel or a prequel or any second version of something that was great and stood well on its own, it's rare that you like the second one as much or more. I would say one exception to that, which works for a lot of people, is a lot of people like Aliens more than Alien.
yeah.
But it's kind of a rare thing. So I went knowing that I went in with low expectations, and obviously we hear so much more about movies now before we go and see them than we used to,
Yes.
because of social media, etc. So I wasn't expecting great things. I did enjoy it, but I've seen it twice, and I enjoyed it
Right.
far more the second time
Okay.
because there were certain things that just slightly put me off, or certain things that I was waiting to be annoyed about the first time. Oh,
Yeah.
I've heard this, Oh yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm annoyed about that. I was annoyed by Denzel Washington's
Mm,
overacting.
yeah.
I was annoyed by Paul Mescal's underacting. Um, just various things like that. I was annoyed by the sharks in
Yeah, oh,
in
yes.
in the Colosseum. But
Well,
then,
how deep would that water have had to been to have sharks in it? I mean, I've been to the Colosseum, and there's no way there's the possible depth there to have sharks in there, because when they go underwater, it's like, wow, that must be at least 10 to 15 feet deep, this water. How can it possibly
but
be?
they did used to flood the Colosseum. They
They
did have
did,
boats and
but
things, didn't they?
but not sharks, as far as I know.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I
who
mean, I,
knows? Maybe there were
I,
small sharks.
I think that's a perfect example of that expression, jumping the shark,
Yeah.
because that was the point where I just went, oh God,
Yeah.
and lost all will to live.
I mean, so when I saw it the second time, I was like, okay, Denzel Washington, yeah, it's actually he's doing some really interesting things. I'm over being annoyed by him now, and actually now I'm seeing the flamboyance of the character, and kind of understood him more. Paul Mescal, I mean, he's not Russell Crowe, he's not that character,
No.
and he plays it slightly differently. There are nods, but some he was he wasn't. Was he underplaying it? It was some of it was quite subtle, but I enjoyed his performance a lot more
Okay.
the second time. The mother I thought was great in the original and in the second one. And I even liked the sharks, the second one, because I thought, hey, they're
Okay.
sharks. It was like, what's not to like? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say if you can be bothered, or certainly wait until you can watch it for free on streaming. But it does bear a second viewing, I think.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I must admit I probably never will, but I'd rather just go back and watch the original. But my
Yeah.
little footnote to this is almost by way of a palate cleanser. It didn't give us what we wanted from a kind of sword and sandals, you know, epic. And then we
Yeah.
just by chance we saw, probably because it's like, you will probably like this, as your streaming
Yeah.
services tend to sort of give you. You will probably like this, and it was Pompeii, a film with Kit Harington from
Okay.
2014.
Not the Frankie Howard
No, no, no,
series.
no, no, not Up Pompeii the movie, which has its merits too. But no, if this is Pompeii, and you know what? It might be a little bit creaky in places, but in terms of construction, I thought it's exactly what I want from this genre. Very
Okay.
clear who we're following, very clear who the villain is, Kiefer Sutherland, very clear, it, and silly over the top special effects at the end, because if you've studied Pompeii eruption at all, you'll know a lot of this stuff that they show in the film didn't happen, but still.
Mm.
But nevertheless, it just sort of built very nicely to the epic conclusion and rounded off in exactly the way you would want it to. So I just thought, in terms of, like I say, giving the audience what they want, Pompeii was a much better bet, even though it's
Okay.
probably not as good a film, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and not historically accurate. But then what is? I mean,
No.
did
Uh,
Winston Churchill ever go on the underground and talk to people as
yeah.
he did in the Darkest Hour? No, I don't really think so.
No, exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
liberties taken. Anyway, sorry, that's just that little digression. Shall we
Mm.
go to Superman? Because that
Yeah.
was that feels like a big chat. And
It does. It does. And the chat is actually, around this is getting bigger because it is banking so much money.
yes, it is, but I've seen lots of things comparing it to Man of Steel, and
Mm.
its worldwide gross is still nowhere near Man of Steel.
Mm. Good.
Yes, so it's yes, it's done well, but none of this latest crop of blockbuster comic related movies have done the numbers, really. Fantastic Four,
Yeah.
Thunderbolts, Superman, they're all down, and it just feels like part of a trend slightly that this huge box office they were doing worldwide is settling to a new normal, if you like. But yes, it's done
Yeah.
well. And I really like James Gunn's stuff. That I just want to get that out there right at the beginning. I was a big fan, which is why I was looking forward to this so much.
Mm.
I've just watched the first episode of the second series of Peacemaker, which, if
Right.
you haven't watched it, watch
No, I
it.
don't know
It
it.
is
Okay.
so funny, so wrong, so funny. Uh, and it just is just so entertaining. And this is a
Okay.
kind of smaller character from Gunn's version of Suicide Squad,
Mm-hmm.
which is also worth a watch, by the way. Very enjoyable. But this
Mm.
isn't the one you would have thought, oh, this is going to be two series of a show. Anyway, it's great. The first series is brilliant, and certainly the first episode of the second series I loved. So James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy, Suicide
Yeah.
Squad, Peacemaker. I thought, I am in safe hands here. And boy, was
Ah,
I on that count. I was really disappointed. How about
okay.
you? First impressions of the movie?
First impressions. I mean, I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. There was a lot to like about it. I thought the performances were good, but again, going in with preconceptions, I am the only person I know, and I'm sure I'm not alone, but I am the only person I know who is a fan of the Zack Snyder Superman Batman.
Hmm.
I just really enjoy it. And so this obviously completely wasn't that.
No.
What it was basically going back to the more kind of Christopher Reeve
Yeah.
Superman, and it did that very well. Um, but I don't like the kind of the flip in a way. It's like DC, who were the makers of serious comic book related movies,
Mm.
as opposed to Marvel, who I felt had sold out because their books were so good. There was so much good, well, I say mature content, but I mean intelligent content
Mm.
in the books. And then the movies are like, oh God, really? Why do you feel like you have to be funny? Is it you don't have the confidence to make a serious movie? That's okay. It made them very, very successful. But I didn't like the fact that Superman had flipped into pantomime rather than actually telling a serious gods and monsters story.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had issues with it. The weird thing is, I didn't dislike it, but criminally, I was aware of the passage of time while I was watching it, which is never a good sign. If you
Okay.
start sort of trying to angle your watch so you can see the time in the cinema, it's really not a good sign. And I was trying afterwards to analyze why it hadn't grabbed me and why it
Mm,
hadn't sort of taken me on that ride, because there's loads of good stuff in there. And as you say, performances are generally really good. I'll get to Nicholas Hoult in a minute, but you know, but
okay.
but the sort of the core performances, they good casting was good. The general vibe was good. Some of the supporting roles like Miss Tessmacher, I thought were, you know, excellent. Just
Mm,
and there was nice, and the Justice Gang I kind of loved whenever they were on screen. It was just like, but it felt like watching a different movie.
mm,
Mr. Terrific was terrific. Honestly, the scene with him and Lois when they're going through the camp and he just sends off his little gadgets and force fields. Oh, what a joy that sequence was. Anyway, so
mm,
there was lots of good stuff, but in terms of structure, I had real problems with it. I thought it starts okay, happy with it to start, where Superman is just a thing. No
mm,
problem. I didn't need another origin. But it sort of felt like the first time we see Superman in action, he is beaten
yeah.
by this Ultraman character, which is another bugbear of mine. But it's, he's beaten. So almost the first thing we see is Superman beaten. Okay, there
Mm,
might be reference to other Superman heroic deeds, but first thing we see, he's beaten. And the basis of a movie is normally you establish the status quo a little more first before you
mm,
upend everything, before you flip and then the hero has to do their journey. But
mm,
this one, we start with him being beaten, so you sort of go, "Oh, I wanted to see him, you know, be Superman first." But the first thing you see, he's beaten. And I think that was a major flaw. The first time you see Clark and Lois together is part of an argument that brews
mm,
up. So,
mm.
so do you see what I mean? There were none of those, let's establish before we blow it all apart. And
Do you think they would take that, possibly bold choice, whatever, because people already know what the status quo is, so they can fast cut. Like they didn't have an origin, they fast cut to something happening. Rather, they don't. The groundwork's already been laid, isn't it? And
but I suppose so. But how many people have ever seen a Superman movie before going into this? I'm sure a lot, but by no means all. So you
mm,
can't treat it like that. You can't, we were told ages ago by either Jim Shooter or Tom DeFalco, remember, every comic you write maybe someone's first.
Mm,
And I think that's so true. You can't just assume knowledge. It's
mm,
got to be self-sustaining and self-supporting. If you took someone from Mars and sat them down in front of a Superman movie, they might say, well, I'm confused here.
mm,
Okay, extreme example, but I just think you can't do that. You can't say, oh, we presume knowledge. Nobody needs to know that. I think they do. And I think it was fundamentally flawed at the start because it ignored that.
okay. Mm.
Anyway,
Yeah, they
so,
did. Yeah,
I mean, that's just my opinion, as all these are just our opinions. But
oh, sure, yeah.
I was just disappointed. And, you know, other, I won't list the whole thing, but I found Lex Luthor, I don't need another Lex Luthor movie for a start. And Nicholas Hoult overacted sort of terribly. And there's a sort of dichotomy between the sort of the brutal Lex Luthor we see in one scene, and then the sort of slightly childish, tantrumy Luthor we see towards the end.
Right.
It didn't gel for me. I thought, like I said, lots of elements were fun. Crypto was fun, maybe a little overused, but
Yeah.
Crypto was fun. There were lots of things, but I just found the whole thing. And then the end, we talked in Fantastic Four about how they limited the scale of the destruction, if you like. They
Mm,
evacuated everybody into the Mole Man's subterranean space, and there
yeah.
was one path for Galactus to come through Manhattan. So buildings got destroyed.
Yeah.
In Superman, you know, it's one of those ones where I was starting to
I know.
just glaze with the scale of it and the nonsense of it. There is a rift opening up, and what you can just zip it back up at the end and everything's fine. How does that work?
I
I mean,
know.
there was so much in that sort of protracted end that, and I think that's where I started looking at my watch and thinking how much
Mm,
more of this. And then, wow, then I'm not going to spoiler it, but then Superman fights Ultraman, biggest, creakiest trope of all superhero movies is unveiled to an audience who pretty much have seen it coming since the start.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm afraid it just was a bit of a miss for me, which is a real shame.
Mm, yeah, I know what you mean. I mean that interesting you mentioned the mass destruction thing and the way that you've compared it to Fantastic Four, which they added some kind of convenient logic to it to make sure
Hmm,
that there wasn't just like, genocide basically. But
yeah.
I mean the Superman thing, it's like, okay, we get Superman and we've seen that lovely shot which they'd used in trailers and things where he protects somebody as all
Yes.
that
Hmm,
explosion. I mean, beautifully shot, wonderful, wonderfully composed, and it's like, oh, this is the nature of this character.
hmm.
Okay, great, we get that, and we kind of get that that's what he's like. But then when he saves the woman in the car, having completely ignored the thousands of people in all
Hmm.
the build all the buildings,
I
when he holds
know.
up a building, which
Yeah.
always to me made absolutely no sense whatsoever.
No.
It doesn't matter how strong you are. You hold
No.
up a building like that, the rest of the building is just going to fall
Yes,
around
of
your hands, isn't it?
course. Of course. And doesn't he save a squirrel or something at one point? There is just some utter nonsense in it that, you just kind of can't get your head, and it's that thing we always talk about. As soon as it jolts you out of the 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 thing, it breaks the proscenium arch. It
Yeah,
destroys you being absorbed into that narrative. And the other little bit that did it for me was the damn hypno glasses or whatever, where they make yet another effort to explain why Superman and Clark Kent can just sort of coexist with no one
I know.
twigging. But but there was this thing, and they gave it to Guy Gardner to sort of explain. And again, it just took me out of the movie. I was thinking, how does that work? What if his
Yeah.
glasses fog up and he takes them off? It's like everyone's like, oh, it's Superman. you know, he's,
He's got
yeah,
curly hair. They won't notice. He's got curly
no,
hair
I
when he's
know.
Clark Kent.
Yes. And I just thought it's one of those things you didn't need to try and rationalize it, you know.
This is very James Gunn, though, isn't it? I think this is the difference that James Gunn made to the Marvel universe. The Marvel books were always, the Marvel films were a lot of the time serious, good action, adventure, great plot, and then there'd be the one-liners and all the
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And James Gunn did that in spades, and it worked very well in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
But in Superman, I think it's that really. But I don't know what people expect. Because I was talking to a director friend of mine, and he'd just seen it, and I said, he said, well, what did you think? And I told him what I thought, and he said, I really liked it. I said,
Hmm.
why? But why did you like it? You're
Mm.
you're supposed to know better. And he said, because I liked it because I enjoyed the old Christopher Reeve Superman movies, and this seemed to be going back to that kind of approach and putting
Hmm.
its new kind of contemporary spin on it
Yeah.
in all aspects, in terms of the tech and the humor and all
Mm.
that kind of thing. And he said, so I feel like I've got my Superman back.
Okay.
And I said, did have you ever read any of the comics? And he said, no.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. There's a difference between the movie superhero universes and the comics.
Mm.
I think they stand apart from each other now. And I can
Yeah.
see that the new Superman is very much, yay, we're back to Superman movies as I remember seeing them. They're good fun, and they're they're
Mm.
brightly lit and brightly colored, and
Yeah.
there's lots of stuff going on.
And
But it's not for me.
and I literally could have taken those elements and said, yes, that was an enjoyable old school Superman movie. But I think it wanted to be everything to everyone, that film. And
Mm,
and in doing so, it made a bit of a, I don't know, sort of ensemble movie, which isn't good. It just didn't
mm,
sort of, for me, gel as, again, you look at the first couple of Christopher Reeve Supermans, the narrative in them is very clear.
mm.
And it just wasn't in this one for me.
I mean, they're bound to make a second Superman. I would imagine it's
Oh yeah,
already in
yeah,
production. But
bound to.
so this is the interesting thing with these kind of things where you've got a main character. Everybody to a greater or lesser extent in the Western world knows that character. Most of them probably know who the ultimate nemesis is for that character. It's the
Mm,
kind of thing that comes up in pub quizzes. Yeah, who's Superman's nemesis? Oh, Lex
yes,
Luthor. Everybody knows
yeah.
that.
Mm,
So once you've done that, it's like, what are you going to do now? That's the interesting
yeah,
thing.
it is.
What do you
Yeah.
do now?
So shall we
But as
move
I,
on? Oh,
I'll
sorry.
just one last thing on it.
Yeah,
Like I say, I'm kind of more of a fan of the Zack Snyder,
yeah,
Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman, and the reason for that is because having worked in comics and having worked in comics late '80s through the '90s, I know how we all fought so hard to have comics taken seriously as a
yeah,
serious kind of narrative medium, and the breakthroughs that were created by people like Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons and blood, all that kind of stuff, and suddenly they were taken seriously as a piece of literature, and this just seems to undo all of that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I get that. Yeah, it's
Mm.
just weird one, but yeah, it's not my favorite movie I've seen recently. So shall we rattle
Yeah.
through a few others because you've
Yes,
got a
let's do that.
list as long as your arm, haven't you?
Well, no, I haven't. No.
Well, tell us about
Um,
F1. You were going to say, you said, you mentioned
yeah.
last time that was one of your favorite of the summer movies.
Yeah, it was because it was just well made, good fun, hung together, good performances, great action. Didn't try to be anything that it wasn't really. I mean, it was flawed.
Hmm.
Um, but so I mean, directed by Joseph Kosinski, who's done Top Gun Maverick, Oblivion,
Mhm.
Tron Legacy, all that kind of thing. So you know it's a safe pair of hands to kind of make a movie like that. And because of that, it was very fast and shiny. It was like a Tom Cruise movie, but with Brad Pitt instead of Tom
Yeah.
Cruise. So it's like a Tom Cruise movie. It's that slick. Um, I think what made it better, amazing as Tom Cruise is. I mean, he's a legend in the industry now.
Mm.
Um, but I think Brad Pitt brought something to that kind of lead male role that Tom Cruise doesn't do. He was cool. I mean, he just really was as cool as anything. He played it so kind of subtly. He didn't have to force the character at all, this hero character. He didn't have to impose himself as a hero. He just like carried it so lightly on his shoulders that I thought he was really, really good.
And he's got such a
Um,
good range, Brad Pitt, because, you know,
yeah,
people tend
amazing.
to sort of, gloss over. But, whenever I've seen him in a film like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or he was in one of the recent Coen brothers ones, he's got a different range of, sort of oddball, goofy, serious,
Yeah,
I mean, he really is a sort of, I think, slightly underrated actor, or an actor who's
yeah,
pegged with being a pretty boy actor rather than a serious
yeah.
actor. But I think whenever I've seen him, I think he's just a very good actor.
Yeah, I mean, he almost didn't need to make this film. It's very much that kind of Steve McQueen thing. It's like,
Mm.
yeah, I love cars. I'm going to make a film with cars so I can drive cars.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah,
fantastic. But I mean, the thing that had always fascinated me about Brad Pitt, and with only a handful of other actors for me, was, and this almost relates to the things I've said about Optimus Prime in a way as well. The thing that Brad Pitt does, um, is that he can portray emotion with just the slightest movement of his eyebrows. And the biggest example of that was Meet Joe Black. When I first saw Meet Joe Black, I thought, there's so much going on with that character, and yet he seemed almost motionless.
yeah. No,
And
he is.
that's a I don't even think that's a skill you can learn. I just think that's something inherent in the actor that's doing that.
And some actors just have screen presence, don't they? And don't need to
Yeah,
do very much with that. But yeah, I
yeah.
agree with you. I think he's definitely one of the, I think, most underrated sort of screen stars of the last sort of couple of decades or more.
Yeah, and his kind of supporting actor in it, Damson Idris, the kind of the driver that he was competing with,
Hmm.
he played his role really well, and there was no way that he was going to be, in the narrative and in terms of playing the movie, that he was going to appear like second fiddle to Brad Pitt. He held his role really well. He and was, yeah, very good, very convincing. Javier Bardem was just him really, but he fitted that role superbly. He didn't really need to do much. He just
Yeah.
just the way he looked. And Kerry Condon, the kind of the character that became the love interest, but that didn't kind of go anywhere as such. But yeah, she was very good. So very,
Hmm.
very well played. The
Okay.
only criticism, I suppose, from a technical point of view, I mean, the shots of the cars and the racing was just astonishing,
Yeah.
and the way that they'd married it with the whole F1 scene, so that they'd got all the real racing drivers in there and shot at the real locations. Fantastic. It was seamless. You really felt
Hmm.
like it was part of F1. The only thing that doesn't quite work is that nobody of Brad Pitt's age would
No.
win a race in a car. I
No, I
I
know.
I assert. I don't know, but I would
No, but
say probably not. Your
I think
reaction times are, you know.
I think you're probably right with that. But hey,
Mm,
I'm okay to as long as the story's sound and everything. I'm happy to step out of, pure. Oh, would somebody of that age be allowed to drive in Formula One?
yeah,
I don't really care at that point. But yeah,
no, no.
I get
It
what
was a
you're
hero.
saying.
It was like a Tony Scott movie. It was that kind of
Yes.
thing. It was like Days
Yeah.
of Thunder.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll suspend that disbelief and we'll just bathe in the twilight of the narrative. Yeah.
So
So
as
it's
you've
good.
mentioned, good. As you've mentioned Tom Cruise, do you want to talk briefly about Final, is it Reckoning, Final something, the
Yeah,
last Mission
yeah,
Impossible, which again I haven't seen, and even though it's come on a streaming channel I could watch, I can't bring myself to sit in front of it for however many hours it is. I
It's
will
quite
at some
long, yeah.
point. Yes.
Um,
Did you enjoy?
I did enjoy it. I mean, it's kind of strange how it's paced. So there seems to be a lot of setup at the beginning, a lot of talking, a lot of getting to grips with everything that's come before it, and it
Yeah.
kind of needs it, and
Mm,
it does it well. But that makes like the first, I don't know how long, but that's probably why it's such a long film, because they have to go through this kind of
yeah.
great long setup for anyone who probably hasn't seen the others. I don't know.
They
And
really should
then
have just
and
done a previously on Mission Impossible. You know, they're done.
yeah. Um, so they do all of that, and they do it quite well. The techniques that they use, and then it goes into full on, kind of Mission
Yeah.
Impossible. It's
Yeah.
great. It's got Cruise kind of climbing around on a biplane. Why they use a biplane makes no sense whatsoever. But hey, we've got a biplane. I want to do it. Let's do it. And so it's fun. It's fast. It's well shot. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It kind of wraps things up quite nicely. Um, the guy, I can't remember his name, which is terrible, but the guy that plays the Nemesis, who obviously was in the previous one,
Yeah.
he plays that role very, very well.
Hmm.
But to be honest, it's not a patch on the previous one.
No. Yeah, because I really enjoyed the first half of this sort of finale, the
Yeah,
previous movie. I thought
yeah,
that was kind of almost getting back to what I enjoyed about the series originally.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's not really an awful lot of dialogue in it. It's not really about much. They just show you lots of stuff.
Yes.
Um, but no, it's you have to see it really.
Yeah.
But but yeah, wait for it to come up
Yeah.
free on streaming. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I mean, we're not quite at the end, but maybe we should just do a quick checklist of any others so we don't leave them dangling. I saw Thunderbolts,
Okay. Yeah, I've
the
not seen that.
which I enjoyed more than any of the other recent Marvel movies. It felt more together in that respect. There's some good bits in it, but there's a sense of ending all of these recent Marvel movies slightly underwhelmed, not
Mm,
disliking per se. This was one of the better ones, and it's got some good people in it in those roles, and it sort of inspired me because I'd missed it to go and watch the Black Widow movie, which I'd skipped for
okay.
some reason, and I enjoyed
Mm.
that. But yeah, it was good, but again, you kind of think, oh, this is just a setup for the next thing and the next thing. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I had a little bit. I've on TV, I've started watching Alien Earth,
Okay.
which is splendid. You know,
Is it worth me subscribing to
well,
Disney Plus or whatever it is?
yeah, maybe you could wait for enough of it to be out and do a sort of one of those free trial months or something and watch it.
Yeah, and then
I
binge
think
it.
you'll enjoy it. It's much better than I had any right to hope it would be, if you know what I mean.
Oh,
It
well,
feels
that's actually that's quite praised indeed, isn't it?
mm,
Really, for
yeah. And
because the bar has been set well high and low, but it's like everybody, they want it to be amazing. So if it's better than expectation, then great.
yeah. And my only other little shout out is for something I'm a bit late to the party on, but Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is the series set before the original series with, Shatner and Nimoy.
Oh yes, yeah.
And that, again, I hadn't watched Star Trek for ages, but this is really fun. It's
Yeah.
gone sort of back to that vibe that a little more innocence about it. And, obviously it's set before the
Mm,
original series and Kirk's in it, with an actor playing him.
yeah.
And it's really good. Not always perfect, and they feel obliged, it seems, to do like the musical episode. And there's a puppet episode coming up, and you just think, oh, please don't.
No,
But
no.
but generally, it's well worth investing a little bit of time in. Any other
What's the
picks?
point of doing a puppet episode? I
I
don't
know.
understand that. So, are they going to do a puppet episode of Alien Earth?
Yes, I know. But there is one very funny episode that I thought could have been terrible, where there's an animated series called Lower Decks, um,
Yeah.
and the characters from Lower Decks start off as cartoons and come back through a portal that features in the original Star Trek series as the actors,
All right.
real life flesh and blood actors who voiced them in the cartoon series, which
Uh,
is a nice gimmick, but then the actual episode is a pure joy to
hmm,
behold. So sometimes the gimmicks work.
I guess. I don't. Yeah. I've
Anyway,
never enjoyed any version of Star Trek as much as the original series. I just
no,
can't.
no. Some are better, some are worse. But this, I've got to say, Strange New Worlds is a lot of fun.
Hmm, hmm. Good.
Um, Anything else you want to drop into the hat?
I should have done my homework. Well, just getting back to the Formula One
Mm,
theme for a minute. There's a documentary on, I think it's on Netflix, about Damon Hill,
okay.
and of all the of all the racing movies, fictional movies that I've seen, and of all the kind of documentaries and dramatizations of various racing drivers, and all the tragedy of that, the whole Rush thing with James Hunt and
Yeah.
Nicky Lauda, all those kind of things. Always fascinating. There's always a great story behind the racing.
Mm,
The one about Damon Hill, narrated by Damon Hill, who sometimes overeggs it a bit, but is just fascinating.
okay.
The story of Damon Hill as a racing driver story is just far more engaging than any of those others that I've seen.
Okay.
I
Oh,
thoroughly recommend. I think it's just called Damon, and I think it's on Netflix, or
okay.
maybe it's
Yeah.
called Hill. But though if you're into racing driving, and I mean Damon Hill, you don't really hear a lot about, do you?
No,
You know, he, you
strangely.
know, no, I mean he was very successful, but for some reason you don't hear an awful lot about him. But um, regardless of that, I thoroughly recommend it.
Okay, yeah, good.
I
Yeah, we
have seen
don't.
a ton of other stuff. I can't remember any of it.
No.
I just
Well,
finished watching Hostage, the new thing that
oh
came out on
yes.
Netflix.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I haven't started that yet.
yeah. Saran Jones is always good.
Yeah.
Um, there was lots in it that was really great. It didn't quite grip me as much as I wanted it to, mainly because the reveal of the villain at the end, the way they do it, or the way that he gets revealed, is a bit kind of Scooby Doo.
Oh God. Yes.
But maybe that's just me. Um, the some of the things I didn't enjoy about it are basically because we're so spoilt with such quality TV these days
Mm,
that we really do expect it to have
yeah.
proper top notch movie standard things. And I think one of the things that often lets a TV series down in terms of its perceived quality, apart from the script and the acting, which is kind of obvious, is the cinematography. So
Mm,
the work that the DP's done, so the lighting and the grading, all that kind of thing,
yeah.
that can make or
Mm,
break something you see on screen. And I think Hostage was good,
yeah.
really good, but just if it was dialed up just slightly, it would have been
Yeah.
excellent.
I
But
mean,
Saran
I
Jones is always great.
I mean, I often find with these 6-part or 8-part thriller series, whether it's on traditional channels or streaming channels, is uh, they start off very well, and then
Mm,
trying to make them fill the space is often a problem. And I found it
mm,
recently with a thing I watched called The Veil, which has got Elizabeth Moss in it, a Channel 4 thriller.
yeah,
Six
yeah.
parts, started off brilliantly, really, really, involving, challenging, interesting, and
Mm,
it just couldn't feel it couldn't it hadn't got enough story, so it just gets
uh.
preposterous towards the end, and
Yeah,
you
we
just
we
go,
started. Yeah, we started watching it. And I thought it was great. I thought the subject matter was good. I thought it was shot well. I was really enjoying it, but I think we were like 1.5 episodes in, and there was just something that just I couldn't get past Elizabeth Moss. I think it's because we'd rewatched The Handmaid's Tale too recently, and she plays it very differently. Her voice and her intonation is very different, which is not wrong at all, but it just was in the way. I think it's one that we'll leave and then probably go back to.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it certainly was for the most part a very good, well put together thing. But like I say, it just, sometimes you feel, oh God, this would have been a brilliant 4-parter, but having to expand it to 6. Anyway, that's just my little beef. Well, I think we're more or less up to our time. So
I feel like we've been really negative about most of these things. I want to next episode, I'm going to come up with something that I think is absolutely brilliant and everybody was awesome.
I did say I'm really enjoying Aliens Earth and Star Trek.
You did,
Strange New Worlds.
The thing that I haven't seen.
I'm not just this curmudgeon who dislikes everything. And I like Fantastic Four. I really did.
You did,
yeah. So, but yes, I do find it hard, and I find people now telling me, "Oh, I used to enjoy films more until you started talking about them," if you know what I mean, because it's like now I start to see them in those ways, and it slightly ruins it for me. So I do apologize to anyone listening if I'm now making you see films in a different kind of way. But
Leslie always says that about me. She says, "Oh, just stop talking about the things that are not right in this film we're watching," because you kind of like pull back the curtain, don't you, and reveal the mechanics behind it.
Yeah,
I'll say really annoying things like, "Well, they shouldn't have gone to a close up there."
Yeah,
like what do I know?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, no, I do know quite a lot, but I mean, the people that make it clearly are doing it for a living. They know what they're doing, but for many, many, many reasons, screen narratives cannot really come across for the things that just the slightest things.
Yeah,
which is a shame, But
indeed,
but the hard work that goes into it,
Next time we do one of these, let's try and do an all singing, all dancing, all positive one. Yes,
I think we should. We should deliberately just pick films that we really, really like.
Yeah. Well, before the builders start again, shall we say goodbye? And
before they start again, can I hear?
Yeah. No. All right. Until they continue again.
Yeah.
Let's say goodbye. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back to probably our sort of careers, as it were, next time.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, guys, and thanks for putting up with if you're still listening, thank you for putting up with the background noise. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Rest is Giant Robots. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider subscribing for more and maybe share with like-minded friends. This has been a Wildfur production.